Hope you have a good lawyer, my ex-wife said after showing up at court pregnant, demanding my house, custody, and support. I sat frozen in the courtroom hallway, watching Vanessa's hand rest protectively on her swollen belly. We'd been divorced for 9 months. I hadn't seen her in 7. The baby was clearly at least 6 months along. Congratulations, I managed. When are you due? She smiled. That same smile that used to make me feel safe before I discovered the credit card she'd hidden, the loans she'd taken in my name, the affair with my business partner. 12 weeks, she said. And since you're the father, I need proper support for our child. My lawyer grabbed my arm before I could respond. That's impossible, I said quietly. We haven't been together in... Doesn't matter what you remember, she cut in. I have proof we reconciled. Photos, text messages, witnesses who saw us together. My lawyer's already filed the paternity claim. The thing is, I'd been in Seattle for work during the entire window when this baby was conceived. I had plane tickets, hotel receipts, security camera footage from my building showing I never came home those weeks. But Vanessa had always been thorough. During our marriage, she'd nearly bankrupted me. When I finally found the courage to leave, she'd tried to claim I was abusive. Only my sister's testimony, she'd been living with us and witnessed everything, had saved me. Now, sitting outside family court, I watched her perform for the gathering crowd. She'd worn a loose dress that emphasized her condition, and her attorney looked like he charged $500 an hour. I'll see you in there, Vanessa said sweetly. Oh, and I've already moved back into the house. Changed the locks this morning. Judge Patterson is very sympathetic to pregnant women. She disappeared into the courtroom. My lawyer pulled out his phone. Tell me you kept everything from the divorce. Every document, I said, including the forensic accountant's report showing she stole $87,000 from our joint accounts. That won't matter if she can prove paternity. She can't. I wasn't even in the state when... Unless she doctors evidence, he interrupted, which, based on her history, seems likely. Inside the courtroom, Judge Patterson, a woman in her 60s with kind eyes, reviewed the emergency filing. Vanessa sat with perfect posture, occasionally touching her stomach. Your Honor, her lawyer began, my client is 6 months pregnant with the defendant's child. She's been living in poverty while he enjoys their marital home. She simply wants what's rightfully hers and proper support for their baby. The judge looked at me. Is this your child? No, Your Honor. That's biologically impossible. I have proof I was in Seattle during... He's lying, Vanessa interrupted, tears streaming down her face. He always lies. That's why I left him. He was cruel and controlling, and now he's abandoning his own child. Her lawyer produced a thick folder. We have text messages showing they were intimate during the relevant time period. We have witnesses who saw them together. We even have photoshopped evidence, my lawyer cut in, which we're prepared to prove. Judge Patterson held up her hand. This is an emergency hearing for temporary support and housing. We'll schedule a full hearing with paternity testing. In the meantime, Your Honor, I said, standing, before you make any temporary orders, there's something you should know about my ex-wife. My lawyer tried to pull me back down, but I stayed standing. She's done this before. The courtroom went silent. Your Honor, Vanessa's lawyer objected. That's completely... She did this exact thing to her first husband, I continued. Claimed he was the father of a child that wasn't his. Took him for everything. I can prove it because her first husband is my uncle. Vanessa's face went white. That's when I realized why she'd seemed so familiar when we met. Why my uncle stopped speaking to me after our wedding. She'd changed her name, dyed her hair, and found her next target. I pulled out my phone and showed the judge a photo. Vanessa's old driver's license I'd found hidden in our attic during the divorce. Her real name is... The courtroom doors burst open. A man in a sheriff's uniform stood in the doorway, his eyes locked on Vanessa. That's my wife, he said. The sheriff strode down the center aisle like he owned the place. He was mid-40s, tall, with the kind of build that suggested he'd been lifting weights since high school. His uniform was crisp, his badge gleaming under the fluorescent lights. Vanessa's face cycled through expressions faster than I could process. Shock, terror, then something calculating. Derek, she breathed. I can explain. Can you? His voice was deadly calm. Because I've been looking for you for 3 months, ever since you emptied our joint account and disappeared. Judge Patterson banged her gavel. Order. Sheriff, this is highly irregular. Your Honor, I apologize. He pulled a folder from under his arm. But I'm Sheriff Derek Kowalski from Riverside County. That woman is legally married to me, has been for 2 years, and she's wanted for embezzlement, fraud, and identity theft in 3 counties. My lawyer's jaw literally dropped. Vanessa stood up so fast her chair toppled backward. He's lying. He's obsessed with me. We dated briefly, but he's been stalking me ever since I left him. We're married, Derek interrupted. He held up his phone, showing what looked like a marriage certificate. Legally, in Nevada. June 17th, 2 years ago. That's impossible, Vanessa's lawyer said, though his voice lacked conviction. My client has been married to Mr. She was married to him when she married me, Derek said flatly, which makes her a bigamist, along with everything else. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Judge Patterson banged her gavel 3 more times. Your Honor, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. I'd like to submit evidence as well. I gestured to my lawyer, who pulled out his own folder. He'd clearly been holding back, waiting for the right moment. We have documentation showing that Vanessa, or whatever her real name is, has been married at least 4 times in the past decade. She married my uncle in 2015, took him for $200,000, and disappeared. She married a businessman in Phoenix in 2017, another in Denver in 2019. Each time she got pregnant, claimed the child was theirs, secured assets, and vanished. These are lies, Vanessa hissed, but her lawyer had gone pale. The interesting interesting thing, my lawyer continued, is that she's never actually had any of these children. There are no birth records, no evidence any baby was ever born. Derek stepped closer. She told me she was pregnant too, used it to get me to refinance my house, take out a loan against my pension. Then one day I came home and she was gone, along with $180,000. And the pregnancy? Judge Patterson asked. Never existed. Or it ended. I don't know. But 3 months later, here she is, 6 months along with someone else's baby. All eyes turned to Vanessa. This is insane, she said. You're all conspiring against me. I'm a victim here. Ma'am, Judge Patterson's voice cut through the room like ice. You're claiming to be 6 months pregnant, but you just told the court you're due in 12 weeks. That's 3 months. Which is it? Silence. Vanessa's hand dropped from her stomach. I misspoke. The pregnancy has been difficult. I get confused about dates. Stand up, Judge Patterson ordered. Your Honor, stand up now. Vanessa stood slowly. In the harsh courtroom lighting, I could suddenly see what I'd missed before. The way her dress hung, the slight asymmetry of her belly. Bailiff, Judge Patterson said quietly. Please escort Mrs. She looked at Derek. What's her legal name? On our marriage certificate, Vanessa Kowalski. But I've since learned she has at least 6 different identities. Escort this woman to a private room. I want a female officer to confirm whether she's actually pregnant. You can't do that, Vanessa's lawyer protested. That's a violation of her. She's making claims about pregnancy to secure financial support and housing. I have every right to verify the basic facts of her case, and given what I'm hearing about her history, I'd be negligent not to. 2 female bailiffs approached Vanessa. She looked around the courtroom like a trapped animal. Then she bolted. She actually ran. 6 months pregnant, or allegedly so, and she sprinted toward the back exit like an Olympic athlete. She made it maybe 10 feet before Derek caught her. He didn't tackle her, didn't hurt her, just grabbed her arm and gently but firmly stopped her. Don't, he said quietly. You'll only make it worse. She struggled for a moment, then went limp, started sobbing. The kind of theatrical crying she'd perfected, the same crying she'd used during our marriage whenever I questioned her spending or asked where she'd been. The bailiffs led her away. Her lawyer sat down heavily, already texting on his phone, probably calling his malpractice insurance. Judge Patterson looked at me. Mr. Morrison, I apologize for what you've been put through. These proceedings are suspended pending investigation. In the meantime, I'm issuing an order preventing this woman from accessing your property or assets. Thank you, Your Honor. Sheriff Kowalski, I assume you'll want to file charges? Multiple charges, Derek confirmed. And I've been in contact with law enforcement in 3 other states. They're very interested in speaking with her. As the courtroom cleared, Derek approached me. I'm sorry you got caught up in this, he said. She's good at what she does. How did you find her? I've been tracking her for months. Hired a private investigator after the police said they couldn't do much about a con artist who moved across state lines. When he found out she'd filed court documents here, I drove straight through the night. The pregnancy? Fake belly. She used one with my mother too. Convinced her to give her $30,000 for baby expenses. My mom died last year, never knowing she'd been conned. I felt sick. I'm sorry. Don't be. You helped me catch her. He handed me a business card. If you're willing to testify, we can make sure she goes away for a long time. Absolutely. My lawyer joined us. Well, that was the most dramatic hearing I've seen in 20 years of practice. We walked out to the hallway. My sister was waiting, her eyes wide. Is it true? She asked. Everything they said in there? All of it. She grabbed me in a hug. Oh my God. If you hadn't found that driver's license, I know. But here's the thing. I had found it, and I'd spent the past 3 months of our divorce doing what I should have done before I married her. Actual research. Because after she'd tried to claim I was abusive, after she'd nearly succeeded in taking everything, I'd gotten paranoid, obsessive even. I'd hired my own investigator, searched public records, found the trail of marriages and divorces, the pattern of pregnant women who never had babies, the deaths and destroyed lives. My uncle had been the first I'd found. When I contacted him, he'd broken down, told me everything, how she'd seemed perfect at first, how she'd isolated him from his family, how she'd faked a pregnancy, miscarriage, depression, whatever narrative worked to extract maximum sympathy and money. I tried to warn you, he'd said, when I heard you were getting married, but she'd already poisoned you against me, hadn't she? He was right. Vanessa had mentioned my uncle was difficult and unstable. I'd accepted it without question. After my uncle, I'd found 3 more men, all with similar stories, all too ashamed to press charges or go public, all just wanting to forget and rebuild their lives. I'd documented everything, created a file so detailed that my lawyer said it looked like a FBI case report, and I'd waited, because I knew she'd come back. Con artists always do. They can't resist the lure of unfinished business, of money they think they're owed. When she'd filed her emergency petition, I'd been almost relieved. Finally, I could end this. The female bailiffs returned 15 minutes later. One of them approached Judge Patterson and whispered something. The judge's expression hardened. Bring her back in. Vanessa returned with her lawyer. She'd stopped crying. Now she just looked defeated. Mrs. Kowalski, Judge Patterson said, or whatever your name is, the officers have confirmed that your pregnancy is not real. You're wearing a prosthetic device. Would you like to explain? Vanessa said nothing. Your Honor, her lawyer said, I was completely unaware of any deception. I'm withdrawing from this case effective immediately. Noted. Mrs. Kowalski, I'm holding you in contempt of court for lying under oath. Bailiff, please take her into custody. Sheriff Kowalski, she's all yours. As Derek led Vanessa away in handcuffs, she looked back at me one final time. The mask had completely dropped. No more tears, no more vulnerability, just cold calculation. You think you've won, she said, but I know things about you, things that will destroy you. Like what? I asked calmly. Your business partner, your affair with his wife, the money you've been skimming from your accounts. I smiled. You mean the business partner you were sleeping with? The one who helped you steal from me? He's already cut a deal with the prosecutor, testified to everything you did. And as for his wife, we had coffee once to compare notes about what you'd done to both of us. Her face went blank. As for skimming money, that was you. Moving funds between accounts, making it look like I was hiding assets. My forensic accountant found all of it. It's in the divorce records. You're lying. No, Vanessa. That's your specialty, not mine. Derek pulled her toward the door. She started screaming then, not crying, just pure rage, threats and curses that echoed through the courthouse until the heavy doors finally closed behind her. My sister put her hand on my shoulder. Are you okay? Yeah, I said, and I meant it. I really am. 3 months later, I sat in a different courtroom, this time as a witness. The prosecutor was young but sharp, and she'd built a case that spanned multiple states and nearly a decade. Vanessa, whose real name turned out to be Jennifer Lynn Bradley, was facing 47 counts of fraud, identity theft, embezzlement, and bigamy. Mr. Morrison, the prosecutor asked, can you describe how the defendant approached you? We met at a charity fundraiser. She said she worked for a nonprofit helping domestic violence survivors. It seemed like fate. My mother had survived an abusive marriage. I was immediately drawn to her. And when did you discover her true nature? About 18 months into our marriage. I found a credit card bill for $30,000 that I'd never seen before. When I confronted her, she said she'd been secretly helping her sister escape an abusive relationship. She even showed me text messages from the sister, hospital records, police reports. It all looked legitimate. But it wasn't. None of it was real. The sister doesn't exist. She created an entire fictional person, complete with medical records and social media profiles, all to justify the spending. Across the courtroom, Vanessa, Jennifer, sat motionless. She'd cut her hair short and dyed it brown. Without makeup, she looked younger, almost innocent. What happened next? The prosecutor prompted. I hired a forensic accountant. He found that she'd opened 17 credit cards in my name, taken out personal loans using my credentials, forged my signature on refinancing documents for our house. In total, she'd stolen or fraudulently obtained about $240,000. The jury looked shocked. Good. And when you confronted her with this evidence, she said I was abusive, that I was trying to control her. She filed for a restraining order, claiming I'd threatened her. Thankfully, my sister was living with us at the time and witnessed everything. She testified that I'd never been violent or threatening. My sister had saved me twice, once during the divorce and again by insisting I install security cameras throughout the house after Vanessa moved out. Those cameras had caught her breaking in 3 separate times, planting evidence and staging scenes to make it look like I was stalking her. Did the defendant ever express remorse? No. Even after everything came out, she maintained she was the victim, that I'd trapped her in an abusive marriage, and was now using my resources to destroy her. The prosecutor nodded and returned to her table. Vanessa's court-appointed attorney stood for cross-examination. He looked tired. Mr. Morrison, isn't it true that you make over $200,000 a year in your software business? Yes. And isn't it true that $240,000 represents a relatively small portion of your net worth? I suppose. So one could argue that my client's actions, while wrong, didn't cause you significant financial hardship. Is there a question? The judge asked. Sorry, Your Honor. Mr. Morrison, did you suffer any actual financial hardship from these alleged thefts? I took a breath. I had to sell my house, the one I'd bought before we met that had been in my family for 3 generations. I had to liquidate my retirement accounts to pay off the debts she'd created. I'm now renting a 1-bedroom apartment and driving a 15-year-old car. I'll be working into my 70s to recover from what she did. So, yes, I'd call that significant hardship. The attorney nodded and sat down. He knew better than to push further. Derek testified next. His story was even worse than mine. Vanessa had convinced him to take out a second mortgage on his house, telling him they were investing in a beach property. The money had gone to pay off her debts from the previous con. She'd also stolen his identity to open accounts, destroyed his credit, and left him on the hook for over $300,000 in debt. I trusted her completely, he said. When she said she was pregnant, I cried. I was going to be a father. We started buying baby furniture, converting the spare room into a nursery. Then one day I came home from a double shift and she was gone. Everything was gone, even the furniture we'd bought together. Did she ever contact you after she left? Once. She texted from a blocked number saying the baby had died and it was my fault for working too much, that I'd stressed her out and caused a miscarriage. How did that make you feel? Derek's jaw tightened. Destroyed. I blamed myself for months, went to therapy, couldn't work, nearly lost my job. Then a friend suggested I request medical records from her OB/GYN. That's when I learned she'd never been pregnant at all, never even seen a doctor. The prosecution rested after 2 days of testimony. We'd brought 7 victims to testify. 7 men whose lives Vanessa had systematically destroyed. The defense's case was brief. Vanessa didn't testify. Her lawyer advised against it. Instead, they called a psychologist who testified about her difficult childhood, her history of trauma, her possible personality disorders. People with this condition often create elaborate fantasies as a coping mechanism, the psychologist explained. They genuinely believe their own lies. So she believed she was pregnant? The prosecutor asked on cross-examination. It's possible she convinced herself. Was she pregnant? No. Did she wear a fake pregnancy belly? Yes, but did she use that fake pregnancy to extract money from multiple men? According to the evidence, yes. Does her psychological condition prevent her from understanding that stealing is wrong? The psychologist hesitated. No, thank you. No further questions. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they returned, the 4-woman stood and read the verdict. On count 1, fraud, we find the defendant guilty. On count 2, identity theft, we find the defendant guilty. On count 3, guilty, guilty, guilty. All 47 counts. Vanessa's face remained blank as the verdicts were read. When the judge asked if she had anything to say before sentencing, she stood. Your Honor, I just want to say that I'm the real victim here. These men, she gestured at us sitting in the gallery, they're powerful, wealthy, vindictive. They've conspired to destroy me because I dared to leave them. I'm not a criminal. I'm a survivor. The judge looked at her for a long moment. Ms. Bradley, I've reviewed all the evidence in this case, the documentation, the testimony, the pattern of behavior spanning nearly a decade. You're right about one thing. You are a survivor. You've survived by systematically destroying other people's lives. You've shown no remorse, no accountability, and no indication that you understand the gravity of your actions. She paused. The sentencing guidelines suggest 5 to 7 years per count. However, given the number of victims, the amount of money involved, and your complete lack of remorse, I'm sentencing you to 15 years on each count of fraud, 10 years on each count of identity theft, and 5 years on each count of embezzlement, to be served consecutively. Vanessa's lawyer shot to his feet. Your Honor, that's over 400 years. I'm aware. I'm suspending all but 85 years of that sentence. Ms. Bradley, you'll serve 85 years in state prison with the possibility of parole after 45 years, by which time you'll be in your late 80s. Vanessa finally broke. She collapsed into her chair, sobbing. Real tears this time, I think. As the bailiffs led her away, she looked at me one last time. No more manipulation, no more lies, just the cold reality of what she'd done. After the sentencing, Derek and I went to a quiet bar near the courthouse. We'd formed an odd friendship through this ordeal, 2 men connected by the same nightmare. 45 years minimum, Derek said, staring into his beer. She'll be an old woman when she gets out. If she gets out, part of me feels guilty. Like that's too harsh. Don't, I said firmly. She would have kept doing this. How many more lives would she have destroyed? I know, you're right. He took a long drink. My therapist says I need to forgive her. Move on. But how do you forgive someone who played me like that? Who made me think I was going to be a father? I don't think you have to forgive her. You just have to accept that it happened, and not let it define you. He nodded. Are you dating again? No. God, no. The thought of trusting someone like that? I shook my head. Maybe someday. What about you? I went on one date. Nice woman. Elementary school teacher. The whole time I'm sitting there thinking, what if she's running a con? What if this is all an act? I started asking her weird questions, trying to catch her in a lie. She thought I was insane. Were you? A little bit. Yeah. We sat in silence for a while. My therapist gave me an assignment, Derek said finally. I'm supposed to list 3 good things that came from this experience. That's cruel. That's what I said, but I did it anyway. Want to hear? Sure. 1. I learned I'm stronger than I thought. I survived this. I tracked her down. I got justice. 2. I learned who my real friends are. Most people disappeared when things got bad, but a few stuck around. Those are the ones who matter. And 3, he paused. 3. I learned that not everyone is like her. Most people are good. I can't let one person's evil make me believe the whole world is broken. I considered this. Those are good things. Your turn. 3 good things. I thought about it. 1. I reconnected with my uncle. After years of silence, we're family again. 2. My sister and I are closer than ever. She's the one person who never doubted me. And 3. I smiled slightly. 3. I learned that you can't con someone who knows your game. Vanessa came back thinking she could manipulate me one more time. Instead, I was ready. I'd done the research, gathered the evidence, and waited for her to make her move. That feeling of control, of knowing I'd won before she even walked into that courtroom, that's something she can't take from me. Derek raised his glass. To surviving. To surviving. We clinked glasses and drank. 6 months after the trial, I started rebuilding my life in earnest. I'd been living in survival mode for so long that I'd forgotten what it felt like to just exist, to make plans, to think about the future. My credit score had finally started recovering. The forensic accountant had helped me document everything for the credit bureaus, proving the debts weren't mine. It was slow, but progress was happening. I'd even started dating. Not seriously, just coffee dates, casual dinners, testing the waters, learning to trust again. The first few dates were disasters. I was so paranoid that I'd run background checks on the women before meeting them. One of them found out and was rightfully offended. You know what? She'd said. I get that you've been hurt, but if you can't trust anyone, maybe you're not ready to date. She was right. I found a therapist who specialized in financial abuse and betrayal trauma. Turns out there's a whole subset of therapy for people who've been conned by romantic partners. Who knew? The hardest part, my therapist explained, is learning to trust your instincts again. Vanessa exploited your natural empathy and willingness to see the best in people. Now you're questioning every positive impulse you have. So how do I fix that? By accepting that some people will disappoint you, some might even hurt you, but most won't. And living in constant fear of betrayal is letting Vanessa win even from prison. I started small. Coffee with colleagues, dinner with my sister and her family, slowly expanding my social circle again. One night, my sister invited me to a board game night at her house. I almost said no. Crowds still made me anxious, but I pushed myself to go. That's where I met Grace. She was my sister's neighbor, recently divorced, teaching high school English. When my sister introduced us, Grace's first words were, "Oh, you're the brother who went through that nightmare. I'm so sorry. You heard about it? It was all over the news. Multiple states, dozens of victims. I actually used the case in my media literacy class, talking about how con artists operate. I didn't know how to respond to that. Sorry, she said quickly. That was probably inappropriate. No, it's fine. It's just, most people either avoid the topic completely or ask really invasive questions. Well, I won't ask you anything, but if you ever want to talk about it, I'm a good listener. And if you never want to mention it again, that's fine too. I liked her immediately. We spent the evening playing board games. Grace was funny, competitive, and had this way of making everyone feel included. When I mentioned I hadn't played games in years, she spent 20 minutes teaching me the rules to codenames, making terrible puns the whole time. At the end of the night, she gave me her number. No pressure, but if you ever want to grab coffee and not talk about your ex-wife, I'm available. I waited 2 days before texting her. We met at a small cafe downtown. So, she said, stirring sugar into her coffee, tell me about something you're passionate about, and don't say work. Is that a rule? House rule at first coffee dates. No talking about work, exes, or politics. Only interests and hobbies. That's a good rule. I've been on a lot of bad first coffee dates. I told her about my love of hiking, how I'd grown up camping with my dad, and how I'd been meaning to get back into it but kept making excuses. She told me about her book club, her terrible attempts at pottery, and her rescue dog who was afraid of plastic bags. We talked for 3 hours. When we finally left, it was dark outside. This was nice, she said. Yeah, it was. Want to do it again? Definitely. We dated slowly. Coffee dates turned into dinner dates. Dinner dates turned into weekend hikes. I met her dog, a neurotic terrier mix named Hitchcock. She met my sister's kids and immediately won them over by teaching them card tricks. The first time she came to my apartment, I was terrified. It was small, sparse, clearly the home of someone still rebuilding, but she just looked around and said, "This is nice. Very minimalist." It's all I could afford after, hey, house rule, remember? We don't talk about that unless you want to. What if I want to? She sat down on my secondhand couch. Then I'm listening. I told her everything. Not the clinical version I'd recited in court, but the emotional truth. How I'd felt so stupid for not seeing it. How I still had nightmares about being trapped in lies. How some days I couldn't trust my own judgment. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Can I tell you something? She asked. Of course. My ex-husband was a compulsive liar. Nothing like what you went through. He wasn't trying to con me out of money or anything. He just lied about everything, where he'd been, who he'd been with, how he spent his time. Small lies, mostly, but they added up until I couldn't believe anything he said. I didn't know. I don't usually tell people. It's embarrassing. Like, why didn't I leave sooner? Why did I keep believing him? Because you loved him. Because you wanted to trust him. Exactly. She took my hand. So I understand. Not the same situation, but I understand the betrayal. The way it makes you question everything. Does it get better? Yeah, it does. Slowly. Some days are harder than others, but it gets better. That night, we didn't kiss. We just sat together on my cheap couch, holding hands. Two people learning to trust again. A year after Vanessa's sentencing, I received a letter forwarded through my lawyer. It was from her. My first instinct was to throw it away, but curiosity got the better of me. Dear, former name for narrator, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. You probably threw this letter away without reading it, but if you're reading this, then maybe part of you is curious about what I have to say. I won't pretend I've found God or had some dramatic prison conversion. I'm not going to apologize because we both know it wouldn't be genuine. The truth is, I'm not sorry for what I did. I'm sorry I got caught, but I've had a lot of time to think in here about why I do what I do, about the pattern. My therapist, yes, I have a prison therapist, says I have something called antisocial personality disorder. Basically, I don't feel empathy the way normal people do. Other people's pain doesn't register as real to me. It's like watching actors in a play. When I married you, I didn't see a person. I saw an opportunity. A kind, trusting, financially stable man who loved his mother and believed in helping people. Perfect. The Pregnancy Act always works. Men want to be fathers, want to be heroes. They'll do anything for a pregnant woman. It's the ultimate manipulation tool. But here's the thing I've realized. I was good at what I did because I never got emotionally involved. You were all just marks. Games to play. Except somewhere along the way, with you, I almost did. Not love. I don't think I'm capable of that. But something close. Interest, maybe. You were smarter than the others. More observant. I had to work harder. When you filed for divorce, I was actually impressed. Most of them just collapsed. But you fought back. And when you showed up at that courthouse with evidence of my past, I knew I'd finally met someone who played the game as well as I did. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even want it. I just wanted you to know that in my own twisted way, you were the only one who ever saw me. The real me, not the character I was playing. I'll be in here for the rest of my life. You'll go on, rebuild, maybe even be happy. That's how this story ends. I hope you find someone who deserves you. Someone real. Jennifer. I read the letter 3 times. Then I showed it to my therapist. How does it make you feel? She asked. I don't know. Unsettled? She's trying to manipulate me even now. Is she? Isn't she? This whole you were special thing? Maybe. Or maybe she spent a year in prison with nothing to do but think about her life. People can have genuine moments of insight. Even narcissists. So what do I do with this? Whatever you want. You could respond. You could ignore it. You could burn it. The important question is, does it change anything for you? I thought about it. No, I said finally. It doesn't change anything. Whether she meant it or not, whether she's being honest or manipulative, none of it matters. My life isn't about her anymore. That's growth. I went home and wrote a response. Not to send, just to get it out of my system. Jennifer, I don't forgive you. I don't wish you well. I don't think about you. You took 2 years of my life, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and my ability to trust easily. Those are things I'm still working to rebuild. But you taught me something valuable, that I'm stronger than I thought, that I can survive betrayal, that I can fight back. So thanks for that, I guess. I hope you spend the next 45 years thinking about what you did. Not to me specifically, to all of us. We weren't just opportunities or marks or games. We were real people with real feelings and real lives. You said you wanted me to know you saw me. Here's the thing. I saw you too. Not the person you pretended to be, but the empty, calculating thing underneath. I'm glad you're in prison. I'm glad you'll be old if you ever get out. I'm glad you have to live with what you are. This is the last time I'll think about you. I folded the letter and put it in a drawer. Maybe someday I'd burn it. Maybe I'd keep it as a reminder. It didn't matter. 2 years after Vanessa's sentencing, Grace and I got engaged. We were hiking in the same mountains where I'd gone with my dad as a kid. She'd packed a picnic, and we found a clearing with a view of the entire valley. "This is perfect," she said, spreading out the blanket. I pulled out the ring I'd been carrying for 3 weeks, waiting for the right moment. "Grace, yeah? I have something to ask you." She turned and saw the ring. Her eyes widened. Will you marry me?" "Yes, God, yes." We kissed, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Pure, uncomplicated happiness. When we told my sister, she cried. When we told Grace's parents, they welcomed me like I'd been part of the family all along. Planning the wedding was surprisingly easy. We both wanted something small, intimate, just family and close friends. My uncle walked me down the aisle. It felt right, having him there. We'd rebuilt our relationship over the past 2 years, spending holidays together, talking every few weeks. He'd met Grace and approved immediately. "She's real," he'd said. "Hold on to that." On the wedding day, standing at the altar waiting for Grace, I thought about how far I'd come. From the courthouse where Vanessa had tried to destroy me, to this moment. From bankruptcy and betrayal, to love and trust. Grace walked down the aisle in a simple white dress, her smile bright and genuine. No manipulation, no games, just her. When the officiant asked if anyone objected, I half expected Vanessa to burst through the doors, but nothing happened. The moment passed. We said our vows. "I promise to be honest with you, always," Grace said. "To never make you doubt what's real. I promise to trust you," I said. "Even when it's hard, even when I'm scared." We kissed, and everyone cheered. At the reception, Derek gave a speech. He'd driven 8 hours to be there. "I met the groom during the worst time of both our lives," he said. "We were 2 guys who'd been conned, betrayed, and destroyed by the same woman. We bonded over trauma and testimony and terrible courthouse coffee." Everyone laughed. But watching him rebuild his life, watching him learn to trust again, watching him find Grace, that's been an honor. It proves that no matter how badly someone hurts you, you can come back. You can be happy again. You can love again." He raised his glass. "To second chances, and to people who deserve them. To second chances," everyone echoed. Later, Grace and I danced alone on the small floor. The DJ played something slow and sweet. "Happy?" she asked. "Incredibly. No regrets? Not about this. Not about you." "Good." She rested her head on my shoulder. "Because you're stuck with me now. Best decision I ever made." And I meant it. Every word. 5 years after the wedding, Grace and I bought a house. Nothing fancy, a 3-bedroom colonial in a quiet neighborhood. But it was ours, really ours. We'd both worked to rebuild our credit, saved aggressively, and finally felt secure enough to invest in something permanent. The day we moved in, my sister brought champagne. My uncle helped carry boxes. Derek drove down from Riverside County with his new girlfriend, a trauma counselor he'd met at a support group. "Full circle," he said, looking around the empty living room. 5 years ago, you were living in a 1-bedroom apartment, barely scraping by. Now look at you. Look at both of us," I corrected. "You're doing pretty well yourself." He'd been promoted to captain, paid off his debts, and was considering running for sheriff in the next election. "We survived," he said simply. We did. That night, after everyone left, Grace and I sat on the floor of our empty living room, eating pizza from boxes. "Tell me something," she said. "Do you ever think about her? Vanessa?" "Yeah." I considered the question. Sometimes, usually when I see something about con artists on the news, or when someone mentions the trial. But it's different now, like remembering a bad flu. It was awful at the time, but it's over. I'm immune now. That's a good way to put it. "What made you think of her?" "I don't know. I guess I wanted to make sure you're really okay, that you're not just pretending for me." I took her hand. "I'm not pretending. For the first time in years, everything is exactly what it seems. This house is real. You're real. Our life together is real. That's all I need." She kissed me. Good answer. We spent the weekend unpacking, arranging furniture, making the house ours. Grace hung her artwork. Abstract pieces she'd been working on in her pottery class. I set up my home office, organizing the files and documents I'd kept from the trial. "Are you going to keep all that forever?" Grace asked, looking at the boxes. "I don't know. Part of me thinks I should burn it all, move on completely. But another part thinks, what if someone else needs it? What if Vanessa gets parole someday and they need evidence? She's not getting parole. Not in our lifetime. Probably not. But still, keep it then. But maybe not in the house? Storage unit? That's fair." A week later, I moved all the boxes to a climate-controlled storage unit across town. Out of sight, out of mind, but available if needed. 7 years after Vanessa's sentencing, I got a call from the prosecutor. "I wanted to give you a heads up," she said. "Jennifer Bradley filed for early parole. It won't be granted. She's served less than a fifth of her sentence. But the victims have a right to submit impact statements if they want. Do you need me to?" "No, we have plenty on record. I'm just informing you in case you want to." I thought about it for a day. Then I wrote a statement. "To the parole board, 7 years ago, Jennifer Bradley nearly destroyed my life. She stole my money, my home, my ability to trust. She faked a pregnancy and tried to steal even more. But she failed. I rebuilt my life. I found love, bought a home, reconnected with my family. I'm happy now. Genuinely, completely happy. Jennifer Bradley deserves to serve every day of her sentence. Not as punishment, but as protection for potential future victims. However, whether she's in prison or free, she can't hurt me anymore. I've moved on. I hope she never does." Respectfully, named the parole board denied her petition unanimously. According to the prosecutor, Vanessa had shown no remorse and spent most of her hearing blaming the victims for being gullible. "Some people never change," the prosecutor said. "She's one of them." I hung up the phone and went back to making dinner. Grace was grading papers at the kitchen table. The dog, we'd adopted one together, a golden retriever mix named Copper, was sleeping by her feet. "Who was that?" Grace asked without looking up. The prosecutor. Vanessa tried for parole. And? Denied. Good. She looked up. Are you okay? Yeah, really. It's just background noise now, you know? She smiled. That's growth. That night, lying in bed, Grace asked me the same question she'd asked when we first started dating. Tell me 3 good things that came from what happened with Vanessa. I'd answered differently each time she asked. It had become a tradition, her way of helping me reframe the trauma. 1. I learned to do my homework. I don't just trust blindly anymore. I verify. That's made me better at business, better at relationships, better at life. 2. I found out who really cares about me. My sister, my uncle, Derek. They showed up when things were darkest. Those are the relationships that matter. And 3, I found you. If I hadn't gone through all that, I wouldn't have been at my sister's game night. Wouldn't have met you. Wouldn't have this life. You think everything happens for a reason? No. I think terrible things happen randomly, but I think we can choose what we make of them. We can let them destroy us, or we can use them to become stronger. That's very philosophical for midnight. I laughed. Sorry, don't be. I like philosophical you. She turned off the light, and we lay in comfortable silence. Through the window, I could see stars. Real stars. We'd moved far enough from the city that the sky was actually dark at night. Everything that mattered was right here. Grace beside me, the dog snoring at the foot of the bed, our home around us, safe, secure, real. Vanessa was 7 years in the past and 45 years in the future. She existed in the space between, but she didn't touch this, couldn't touch this. I'd survived. More than that, I'd thrived. And that was the best revenge of all. 10 years after the trial, Derek called with news. She's dead, he said without preamble. What? Jennifer Bradley. Vanessa. Whatever we're calling her. She died in prison last week. Brain aneurysm. Just gone. I sat down heavily. How do you feel about it? I don't know. Relieved? Guilty for feeling relieved? It's complicated. Yeah, there's no funeral. No family claimed the body. She's being cremated by the state. Sounds about right. Are you okay? He asked. Honestly, I think so. It's weird. I spent so much time afraid she'd somehow get out, come back, hurt someone else, and now she's just gone. End of a chapter. End of the whole book. We talked for a while longer. About his campaign for sheriff, he was leading in the polls. About my business, I'd started consulting for companies on fraud prevention. About Grace, we were talking about adopting kids. After we hung up, I told Grace the news. How do you feel? She asked, always her first question. I don't know. She was such a massive presence in my life for so long. This villain, this source of fear. And now she's just not. It's anticlimactic. Death usually is. I guess I thought I'd feel something more. Satisfaction, maybe. Or closure. Do you need closure? I thought about it. No, I closed that chapter years ago. This is just confirmation. That night, I took out the storage unit key. Grace drove with me to the facility. We loaded all the boxes, years of evidence, documentation, testimony, into the trunk. At home, we built a fire in our backyard pit. One by one, I fed the documents into the flames. Police reports, financial records, court transcripts, my own journals from the worst days. You sure about this? Grace asked. I'm sure. The last thing I burned was the letter Vanessa had sent from prison. I watched her handwriting curl and blacken, her words disappearing into smoke. Goodbye, I said quietly. Not to Vanessa specifically, to all of it. The fear, the anger, the trauma, all of it turning to ash. Grace put her arm around me. Feel better? Actually, yeah, I do. We watched the fire burn down to embers. Copper chased moths in the yard. The neighbors' kids were having a pool party, their laughter carrying over the fence. Life was good, simple, real. Everything Vanessa had tried to steal, I'd rebuilt better. And now she was gone, and I was here, and that was enough. More than enough. It was everything.